Hello and welcome back. In this video, we will get the lights to work. Now, I fully intended on actually recording the video of this, but I was really having a hard time keeping my head out from in front of the camera in the work. And plus, it took quite a bit longer than I planned. It was more time consuming than I thought it was going to be, especially feeding these wires through. As you can see here, I've got 4 wires coming through that little feed through. If I had it to do over again, I probably would have made all of the splices behind the glare shield or the dashboard, and that way I just would have ran 2 wires down the left-hand side to the left light and 2 wires down the right-hand side to the right light. But instead, I chose to do all of the splicing inside of the left light lens, which ended up working, but it was very difficult to feed the wires through those holes. So might want to just keep that in mind when you start planning yours. And here we can see kind of the view where the wires come through the fender and then up into the bottom side of the light. So yeah, if I ever do another one of these, I'll just run 2 wires per light and do the splicing behind the instrument panel. So once we get the wires fed through, and plus the 2 wires, I think I showed before, the 2 wires that go from side to side, I just had those routed underneath of the radiator. And so when we look at the left-hand side, there's only 2 wires coming through. And I left them a little bit long just to make it easier in case a light bulb burns out. I can just pop the lens off, pull the light out a bit, and replace the bulb. So I've got the wires stripped, and you can see I've got a couple of pieces of heat shrink there. I have also cut the little wires on the light bulbs a little bit shorter because they were kind of long. And plus all of those, the leads on the light bulbs are not insulated, and the inside of the bulb lens is metal. So we really want to make sure we protect those, put some heat shrink on it. And here we can see the light bulb soldered in place. And I did put like paper towel around everything because I've learned the hard way on other models that all it takes is one little drop of solder falling off the tip of your iron, landing on your painted model. And yeah, that's a good way to ruin your model. So plus I didn't want any flux dripping on the rest of the model. So just take your time, put some paper towels down, protect your investment, protect the model. We don't want any oopsies here. And then we get the heat shrink sleeves put in place, and make sure they're pushed all the way up against the bulb there, just so we don't want any short circuits or anything happening. And all you need to do after that is just kind of coil the wires up inside of the lens housing, and then put the your lens in place. And that's what it looks like, kind of just coiled up in place. And there's plenty of room there for the wires. And again, a little lens part that just kind of snaps in place. We'll see a view of that coming up here in just a little bit. Now on the other side, we have 4 wires coming through. One of them is coming from the battery tray. One is coming from the ignition switch. And those get spliced onto the 2 wires that go over to the left-hand side. And of course, as we said, that wires your bulbs in parallel. And again, make sure you protect the model against any soldering splatters or drops from your flux or drops from your solder or anything like that. And once those are spliced together, we can go ahead and solder the bulb in place, as we can see coming up any second. And there it is. So there's the bulb soldered in place. And of course, we just put the heat shrink on it, just like we did on the other side. And just to show you, I do use a heat gun when shrinking my heat shrink. I don't know why, but it's always been a pet peeve of mine to see people use an open flame, like from a lighter, to heat shrink tubing. I've done it before. I've used lighters before, but yeah, it's just, I don't know. It bugs me, it bothers me. I just think it'd be really stupid to use an open flame near a model like this just to heat some heat shrink down. No offense if that's a way you do it. I'm sure it worked out fine for you, but I would just highly recommend using a heat gun. And that heat gun is actually part of my soldering station, and it was like $50 for the soldering station, maybe 60. But I got it online, maybe Amazon, I think. But soldering iron heat gun, all one unit, thing has lasted great for years. Got no problems with it. So I know lighters are cheap, but just spend the money and get a nice soldering station that has heat gun with it. But here we can see the other bulb kind of just curled in place, ready for the lens to go on. And any second now we'll see the lens on with the lights lit up. I don't have the right size battery yet. I just took a AA battery and clamped it to the wires in the back, and you stick the key in the ignition, turn the key on, and the lights come on. Now the front bezels are not on in this picture, but here's what the front bezels look like put on. So here's those other pieces put on, the little chrome front bezels there, and they're supposed to just snap in place, but they're really loose, and I'm still trying to think of the best way to attach those. We'll take a look at those here in just a few minutes. I've got a few ideas, none that I like, but yeah, they're too loose just setting on there. I mean, they're fine for like, photo, but if you go to move the model around, if you touch them, they just kind of move and can fall off. And of course, we have to see what it looks like with the lights on with those. So here's a view with the lights back on again. And I think those look pretty nice. I'm kind of liking that. So next up is to find the right size battery that will fit in a little holder in the back, and then come up with some sort of a battery holder. The kit, as I received it, was missing the battery holder. So I'll more than likely just 3D print something for that. And, yeah, so far so good. And here's the battery. It's an N. Got a 2-pack for like $5. Now they do make batteries this exact same size and shape that are 6 volts and 12 volts. So just make sure you get the one that's 1.5. Otherwise, your light bulbs won't be lasting all that long. And since, if you remember, my kit was missing the battery holder, I just went into SketchUp and drew up a really simple shape. And it only had to meet 2 requirements. It had to fit into the hole in the back of the car, and it had to hold the battery. And so that's what this does. Now I could have bought one. They're on eBay for like $5. I'll show you a picture of one here in just a second. Or, if I wouldn't have had a 3D printer, I probably could have made it out of something else. But it is nice having a 3D printer that you can just sketch something up and make it. Here's what I could have bought. I mean, like I said, it's only like, $5 and this one was maybe free shipping. But yeah, free shipping says right in the title. But then I would have to have waited for it to get here, and I kind of wanted it now so I could, finish. And so I just, made my own. So here's a view of it holding the battery. Now, of course, right now it can't really conduct anything. There's no way to put the wires on that yet. I could just wrap the wires around the ends, but that's a little bit hokey. So I decided to make some little brass strips that would wrap around that and just solder the wires onto those brass strips. And here's those 2 brass strips, and they've been bent to fold around the ends of the battery holder. And I pre-tinned them to make it a little bit easier to solder together and solder the wires on, because I will be soldering this when it's on the battery holder, which doesn't seem like a lot of sense to solder stuff together while it's on a piece of plastic. But it actually turned out okay, and I figured if it failed, I would just reprint the piece and try something else. So here's just a view of that setup using the little helping hands thing. I think that's what it's called, to hold it in place while I solder it. And the key is here, if you're going to solder on plastic like this, you want your soldering iron to be hot, which sounds backwards, but the hotter the soldering iron is, the less time you need it to be on the part, which means the less time the plastic has to melt. If your soldering iron isn't that hot, then you have to hold it there longer, which means your plastic has more time to heat up and melt. And it actually worked without any problems. It didn't seem like the plastic melted at all. Soldered together fine. Here's what the finished battery holder looks like. And of course, here's what it looks like with the battery installed. So all I got to do now is solder that to the car. And again, I left the wires long enough so I could do this outside of the car. And like on the light bulbs and the fenders, I protected it with paper towel so that I didn't accidentally melt any part of the painted surface or any part of the car. And, I didn't want to damage the leather or anything like that. So protect it and just soldered the wires on. And of course, a view with it installed fits pretty much perfect. And of course, a view with the seat installed. Of course, the seat just snaps into place, so it's pretty easy to just pop the seat out, replace the battery if we ever have to. But I'd be surprised if he really uses the light that much. And of course, here's me reaching around while trying to hold the camera and turn the lights on. They flicker a little bit while you're getting the key in position, but once the key gets in position, they stay on and look pretty good. Now, a friend of mine told me that if I want more viewers and more subscribers, that I need to put pictures of hot chicks and stuff like that in here. And I don't really know how that would work, but he's never steered me wrong before. So since I'm kind of out of stuff to show you, while I kind of wrap up and finish some thoughts here, I just thought I would put some pictures of some hot chicks that I found online. I just did a simple Google search. Couldn't believe what came up. But if it works, here you go. Enjoy. So that's going to wrap it up for this video. And, the next one, I'm still working on polishing the door and the hood panels. So next video, hopefully, we'll have the door on. We'll work on putting the hood panels in place. And there's just a few minor little things to touch up, a couple little decals to put on. The flexible exhaust pipes have to go on. I got to make the straps hold the convertible soft top back, and probably just a few of the little minor things. But this is almost done. I'm hoping, 1 or 2 more videos at the most, and this thing will be pretty much wrapped up. So I'm going to stop talking now. I've been rambling for a little bit. And if you'll excuse me, I have some search history to delete. So, as always, thanks for watching.